the consciousness and the cosmos, a path to one's own inner cosmos, in assistance of a more profound understanding of the current planetary transition, a stimuli that accompanies the pilgrim in his return to his cosmic home, the consciousness and the cosmos. Podcast of Uksim Planetary Service Centre. Hello dear listeners, my name is Arowinak. In today's podcast we will see what truly characterizes a spiritual technique. For those who are searching in their life the meaning of the existence, those who are seeking spiritual tools, instruments and techniques to have a little glimpse or to explore more deeply the meaning of life, the spiritual meaning of the planetary existence, our part of the planetary existence, our participation in the evolutionary plan. Should we be using techniques, spiritual techniques? Do we need a spiritual technique to achieve inner relation with our inner cosmos within us, with our inner instructor? Do we need to go inwardly or do we need to go outwardly, which means use a spiritual technique? Let's find out what Daniel Gagliardo, a founder and instructor of Cosmosophy line Uksim, will tell us about spiritual techniques and whether we need them or not. Daniel Gagliardo answers, a technique is an organized externalization of some form of energy, whether emotional or rational. An internally inspired individual who is attuned with the energy governing a particular cycle reveals a technique they have received internally. This technique is perfectly tailored to the stage at which it is presented through the individual, based on the needs of the potential recipients who will participate in it. Most techniques related to spirituality, if not all, originate from the East, dating back approximately 3,000 to 4,000 years. These practices stem from Eastern philosophical traditions in the Northern Hemisphere, particularly influenced by Shambhala, which represents masculine energy and the externalization of spiritual concepts on the planet. Historically, we can argue that techniques were often intertwined with belief system, suggesting that the techniques were deeply rooted in faith rather than empirical understanding. Daniel Gagliardo answers, belief and technique are inherently linked. They cannot be separated. A person who employs a technique must first believe in it. This belief generates a form of mental activity that transforms into technique, providing a solid foundation for that belief to stand upon. This marks a moment of synthesis. Sometimes we refer to this type of consultation as relying on belief, which is indeed one of the most fundamental experiences. However, we cannot remain solely at this basic level. If we do, focusing only on belief, we risk stagnation. At some point, a person must let go of basic experiences that are supported by beliefs. The consciousness tied to these foundational beliefs does not evolve. It remains stagnant within the natural flow of life. We are meant to align ourselves and grow according to a higher state of existence that nourishes us. If I cling to my belief in all my actions, my experiences will remain natural, slow, and limited. Instead, I need to embrace a source of vitality that transcends these beliefs, fostering a form of pure existence that does not rely on belief, but on true living. The technique was fundamentally and internally inspired structure designed to stimulate a mental combination aimed at benefiting the individual. When a person identified a technique as a valuable tool, they could use it to enhance their own growth and understanding. In 1988, a significant shift in energy occurred, making the end of dominant masculine energy and the rise of feminine expression. This transition will continue until the complete exhaustion of masculine energy is realized, is fulfilled, which also signifies the gradual deactivation of the law of karma. As a result, many techniques that were previously supported by the law of karma and the masculine energy began to lose their effectiveness. These techniques may still serve a purpose for those who need to develop or complete specific practices, but overall they are becoming less active. This situation represents a transitional phase between two energy fields and two laws, where both coexist and interact. The energy fields of masculine and feminine are expressing different states. The feminine is entering a state of hyperfunction, while the masculine is moving into hypofunction. Additionally, the law of karma is becoming deactivated and manifesting as hyperfunction, whereas the higher evolutionary law is entering a state of hyperfunction. Those who are less advanced still need to practice certain techniques and review concepts. However, there is a tendency for inertia. When people begin to review something and realize they can manage it, they often continue with it indefinitely. What was originally a stimuli from the soul to the reviewer ends up being an attachment to the ego and personality, to a technique or to a type of knowledge, to a concept. And when this attachment is very strong, when the ego is not able to let go, no matter how hard the soul is trying to let us know, to put it in that way, in the face of the ego, it finds no answer. What we mean, continues Daniel Gagliardo, is that a more internally mature individual realizes that when they attempt to elevate their consciousness through a specific technique, they often see little or no results. In fact, many people report feeling disrupted or out of equilibrium when attempting to engage in exercises based on techniques. Why is that? Because they are now equipped with this new feminine energy to shift their consciousness's relationship with the certain aspects of reality. They can, through introspection, directly access a specific type of inner assistance that prevents them from becoming caught up in a technique. Therefore, the more mature a being becomes through introspection, the more they will discover a path of synthesis where their inner consciousness guides, instructs, and nourishes them along that journey. This will make them feel liberated from the need to rely on any particular technique. Daniel Gagliardo continues. So, where you find people who are more attached to the techniques now in the current planetary transition, it is because in a previous incarnation were not able to truly deepen these techniques. Now, during this transition, they are being given an age, possibly a crash course, enclosing what they could not adequately deepen before. This process helps to close the cycle and the being to open up to the new energy being presented. Currently, most of humanity is not in a position to do that. We can say that 90% of the 8 billion of us who are incarnated cannot let go of techniques of any kind. Therefore, we can only roughly estimate that around 800 million people, maybe 700 million people, or up to approximately 900 million people, have the potential to open themselves up to lead in evolutionary experiences without relying on rigid tools like dogma or technique, because a technique alone cannot bring about transformation. A technique is a structured approach within a broader doctrine, functioning as a specific mechanism you cannot alert at will. You need to adhere to the technique according to the parameters it presents. This new feminine polarity encourages us to be the architect of continuous transformation in relation to the realization inspired by our soul. Historically, we can argue that techniques were often intertwined with belief system, suggesting that the techniques were deeply rooted in faith rather than empirical understanding. Daniel Gagliardo answers. Belief and technique are inherently linked. They cannot be separated. A person who employs a technique must first believe in it. This belief generates a form of mental activity that transforms into technique, providing a solid foundation for that belief to stand upon. This marks a moment of synthesis. Sometimes we refer to this type of consultation as relying on belief, which is indeed one of the most fundamental experiences. However, we cannot remain solely at this basic level. If we do, focusing only on belief, we risk stagnation. At some point, a person must let go of basic experiences that are supported by beliefs. The consciousness tied to these fundamental beliefs does not evolve. It remains stagnant with the natural flow of life. We are meant to align ourselves and grow according to a higher state of existence that nourishes us. If I cling to my beliefs in all my actions, my experiences will remain natural, slow, and limited. Instead, I need to embrace a source of vitality that transcends these beliefs, fostering a form of pure existence that does not rely on belief, but on true living. If I open myself to my inner life and seek, says Daniel Gagliardo, through that seeking a degree of enlightenment, that attunement does not become a belief. The result of attunement and alignment is not a belief, it is a profound experience. When it settles in me and touches my inner life deeply, there is no belief that can be placed on a level with it. There is no belief at all, because when the being leaves the experience of inner contact, of inner relationship, all belief begins to dissolve, to fracture, and to fall apart. Until the being has inner attunement and alignment, it has no inner contact. For it, the ceiling of everything is what it believes in. Belief is a psychic structure. It can refer to something higher, but there are also doctrinal, political, cultural, religious, and sporting beliefs structures. Beliefs are limited by our psyche. When we hold a belief, we're essentially telling our psyche to accept something as true. However, our inner life offers stimuli that can conflict with these beliefs, guiding us toward the eternal present. It encourages us to continuously reconnect with our inner lives, with our inner selves, enabling us to move beyond our previous beliefs and focus on our lived experiences in the present moment, in the eternal presence. This connection provides us with the greatest nourishment and growth, which we need to cultivate as we navigate our journey. The inquiry made explores the concepts of soul groups, souls connected by a specific vibrational frequency or ray. The person here asking is interested in elaborating on the factors that bind this spirit, these monads together, and the characteristics that create unity among them. What specific attributes or experiences draw them into a cohesive group, and how does this alignment influence their journey through different incarnations? Daniel Gagliardo answers. Race and lineages, depending on what cosmic function we are locating them in, and in what evolutionary state. So, ray, lineage, and hierarchies, monads participate in hierarchies where cosmically there are 21 major hierarchies. The monads are unfailingly an expression. They are part, no matter what the evolutionary level of any of the 21 major hierarchies. Only at certain stage are they passive hierarchical members, and at other stages they become active hierarchical members. In the context of cosmic hierarchical participation, practitioners work with race and lineages. While race and lineages may mutate and evolve, the membership remains constant. Generally, there can be exceptions within the hierarchical lineage from which the monad or the spirit descends, meaning that it is a participant and a member. There are 21 hierarchies, and each monad is inevitably a part of one of these hierarchies. At some point in its evolutionary journey within that hierarchy, a monad or a spirit will explore different lineages based on its evolutionary stage. For example, the monads currently experiencing life on the planetary surface belong to a known circle of lineages. They are also connected to a radial circle with which we are familiar. Presently, only monads associated with the first 7 rays are active on Earth. Monads ruled by the 8th to the 12th rays are not yet present, but they will be in the future. There are monads that are transitory restricted to express their energy according to the 7 lineages that we know. Still, our own monads will at some point experience lineages that are not any of these 7 lineages. They have already made experiences with lineages that are not any of these 7 lineages either, meaning that each circle of lineages that the monads transcend in their expansive process is never repeated. That stage is unique. So, the monads operating together in certain stages within a lineage circle, within a radial circle, but unfailingly, those 2 experiences are in alignment and membership with a cosmic hierarchical line. And we underline here again, the point is that you can be an active or passive member of those hierarchies. A monad is considered a passive member when it is not yet awakened on a cosmic level. At this state, the soul projects itself through its passive member, which engage with the inner groups of souls. The ego, too, acts as a passive member because when the soul and the monad are not awakened, the ego becomes overly identified and committed to the material world. However, as the soul and the monad begin to awaken, they gradually transform into active members, moving beyond their previous passive roles within their respective groups. Do those 21 hierarchical lines correspond to the 21 rays? Daniel Gagliardo answers, exactly, precisely because the hierarchical lines, the hierarchies, express the radial law. The rays are laws, and the hierarchies are tools for the cosmic laws to be fulfilled. Since the rays are laws, the hierarchies assume a relationship to a radial line and are the tools, the instruments for their manifestation. Another question.